Here we are in Nashville's downtown Bicentennial Mall, where we have this plaque on the heritage of baseball in Nashville. You can pause this if you want to read it, but it talks about how some of the Civil War soldiers started playing baseball near here at a sulfur spring. The spot where those Civil War soldiers played eventually became a local park in 1870. And then they realized that eventually people would want to watch games being played there. So in 1885, they added a wooden grandstand. And then the next thing you know, when minor league baseball became a thing, there was games played at this spot. And it became known as Sulphur Dell. And because of its long history, it was named baseball's most historic park. The team who played here most of the time was the Nashville Vols. So there's more than one Vols in athletic team in Tennessee. So games were played here until 1963, but then the stadium was torn down in 1969, and it became a parking lot for many decades. But when it was time for Nashville to have a new ballpark for the Sounds, they used the old spot of Sulphur Dell, and this is now First Horizon Park. This tribute to Sulphur Dell is on the back of the center field wall here at First Horizon Park. One of the most iconic things of First Horizon Park is the guitar-shaped scoreboard, which is a full video board in the middle of that guitar. So we're outside the stadium right now, but that's what it looks like. If you saw the recent video from Mr. Beast starring Ronaldo, there was a segment starring Bryce Harper taking swings, competing against a Little League player. That was filmed here, although it wasn't mentioned anywhere in the video, but the guitar-shaped scoreboard gives it away. We are now behind the stadium, where there is a series of historic markers that talk about the early history of baseball in Nashville. So you can pause and read each of these if you want. Up in front of us on the back of the stadium is this nice mural talking about showing some of the history of the Nashville Sounds. In the end, we have scenes of the old Sulphur Dell, which is right here. And then the bottom of the end is my favorite old logo of the Nashville Sounds, showing a guy swinging a guitar. The letter A shows the old Greer Stadium. S might be the most interesting thing on here. Don Mattingly was one of the early favorite players here of the Nashville Sounds. He was here when it was the Double-A team for the Yankees. In the H is Skeeter Barnes, who is a longtime fan favorite who played here for several seasons through the 1980s. V shows the new stadium. I is for the Sounds mascot Gapper. And then we move over to the letter E in Nashville, and we have the country music star races featuring Johnny Cash, Reba, and I think George Jones. While we're walking around the outside, here are some baseball places to lock your bicycle. And then we also have a statue for Coach Ed Temple. He was the track coach at Tennessee State University here in Nashville, but he was also the Olympic coach for the 1960 women's track team, where one of the most famous athletes out of that was Wilma Rudolph, who is also from the Middle Tennessee. The stadium is also home to Fish Boy. We are now at a Nashville site called St. Cloud Hill. In the Civil War, this was used as a fort and is most known to people as Fort Negley. After the Civil War, this land was left undeveloped for many decades, and then in the 1930s, the FDR administration decided they wanted to reconstruct the park so that it would look like it did during the Civil War. However, World War II came around, and all the plans, the money, and the workforce to do that dried up. After a couple more decades, the land fell into disrepair and was closed off to everybody. So, what does that have to do with sports? Well, when they sealed off the entire area, they decided to open up the south side of the hill for some recreation areas. And, for instance, there were some baseball fields that were placed here. It had been about 15 years after the Nashville Vols minor league baseball team was taken away that Larry Smitto led a group of investors to try and bring minor league baseball back to Nashville. He enlisted the help of local sporting goods store owner Walter Nipper, and because the city wasn't going to help give them any tax money to build a stadium, he also partnered with country music stars like Conway Twitty and Jerry Reed to build Greer Stadium. And that is the site that is right here next to Fort Negley. Now in 2016, the Sounds were done playing here and moved to First Tennessee Park, which is now First Horizon Park. And there's not much of the stadium that's left. You can see there is the shape of a stadium. You can see a different color of grass where the infield dirt used to be. But there's no stadium here anymore. You can kind of see some sloping, and people have since then come in and graffitied what is left of the walls, but this was left as a wasteland for about 4 years until it was finally just completely demolished. But you can see the shape of where the grounds are, and I think it's neat where the old infield dirt is. You can kind of see a different color of the grass right there. But of course, home plate and the seating behind it would have been over here, so is the press box. The most famous feature about Greer Stadium was its guitar-shaped scoreboard. That was added in 1993. And it wasn't, the scoreboard part didn't fill the entire guitar, but what was nice, I don't know my guitar parts, the long handle part of the guitar had the inning score listed along I guess that's the neck of the guitar. And then the little tuning frets were little advertisements. There were more rectangular advertisements on the main face of the guitar. And so for years they were wondering what would happen to it. And then eventually it went up for sale, and it ended up right here. And a lot of people don't know about its new location. There's very little evidence left that this ever was a stadium, or that the Sounds ever played here. You've got some old gates that have been knocked over. But on the outside of the stadium, we have this old baseball diamond that was actually part of the concrete. And then finally up here we have an actual Sounds logo. So I have an old replica of what Greer Stadium used to look like. You can see the guitar-shaped scoreboard there in the outfield wall. We are at a new city park called the Outfield. Real estate developers created this little park. It's in front of a new Live Nation building. This is part of the Wedgwood Houston neighborhood. So you'll see that name in a couple of places. So on the scoreboard, they removed the digital scoreboard part of this, and they also took away the ads, but they've added a Sounds logo. They put the name Nashville and Music City out of neon lights on here, and then they also outlined the shape of the guitar with neon lights. I like how they preserved the inning and total scores there at the end of the neck. But one of my favorite things here that I was not expecting was how they recreated the outfield wall out of intermodal cargo containers. So the old batter's eye is just had a solid dark green color, and that today is a concert stage. But then also they have recreated some outfield advertisements on the rest of these containers. So you'll see some of these ads would be perhaps things that you used to see at Greer Stadium, but then for the rest of the wall, they will include some famous Nashville businesses such as Prince's Hot Chicken, or they'll have some other ads for companies that are local in this particular part of town. But I also like how they recreated the old Universal Tire sign with the actual tire on it. So this is one of those hit it here and win a suit kind of places. So if someone could have hit a home run through the tire, and just think how hard that would have been, you could win a prize. But then when you actually walk out of this part of the park, cross the tracks, when you go to the back of it, they have added something new to this scoreboard. They painted a acoustic guitar look to the back of it. This is what we could see when we were at the Greer Stadium site. So this is how it looks here. I think this is really well done, the way they added this. And then I also think it's neat how the back of these intermodal cargo containers, you can see some volume knobs, like you can adjust the sound for a country music recording. But a quick note about these tracks. These are live tracks. All the trains that run through the Gulch also come down these tracks, so you don't want to stand here very often. But I did think it was neat how if you look way off in the distance, you can actually see the Fisk Jubilee Hall. As we walk back into the park and take a look at a lot of the advertisements that are painted on these cargo containers, first I want to point out this one that says Sea Sock City. This is my favorite one here, for a couple of reasons. First, it is an homage to the famous Sea Rock City signs that the Rock City people have painted on barns and birdhouses all over the place. But also because this is a direct reference to the May Hosiery Mill, which is just down the road, slightly down Chestnut Street. And a lot of people don't realize that at one time, May Hosiery Mill, a company that made socks, was the largest employer in Nashville, the largest company in Nashville, and they were here in the Wedgwood, Houston neighborhood. Over on the right side, we have Prince's Hot Chicken. That is essentially the restaurant that got Nashville hot chicken to be a thing. Then we have the iconic Opryland logo here. A lot of people are still sad that our theme park in town was torn down for a mall. Above that is the Forks Drum Closet. That is a modern local business. It's just a block away on Chestnut. Then on the left side, we have Gabby's Burgers and Fries. That is a modern popular restaurant that's fairly close back towards the old Greer Stadium site. Then we have Mid-South Ice. We have United Record Pressing. If you didn't realize that one of the nation's foremost modern record album producing companies is here in town, and it's again just down the road on Chestnut. If you've seen some of the concepts that Jack White and Third Man Records have come up with, such as glow in the dark record albums or albums with two different grooves on one side, or the time that he made a recording and had it turned into an album in under an hour, this is where it came, United Record Pressing. Then you have the Fairground Speedways. This area was, of course, Nashville's most important racetrack that was there for over a century, and I guess it's not going to be there anymore. It's over there where the Geodis Park is today for the Nashville soccer, but yeah, that was a long time racetrack in town. Then in the bottom row, we have Slim and Husky's Pizza. And then Purity Dairies, of course, that is the largest local dairy company in the Nashville area. Then Arnold's Country Kitchen, that was over there on 8th Avenue. Then we finish up with KDK's Ranch Dressing. Now, a video on baseball sites in Nashville should not be complete without a mention of the Negro Leagues. And a couple of blocks away at the corner of Chestnut and 2nd Avenue in front of a school is this marker for Thomas T. Wilson. He was a Negro League player and owner of the Nashville Elite Giants. Now, best I can tell, all of the Negro League teams that were located in Nashville played all of their games at the Sulphur Dell, so there wouldn't be any additional sites to cover for the Negro Leagues. So, what is next for the Greer Stadium site? Over the last decade, there had been several proposals. Some people had suggested turning this back into a recreation area, have another field that people can play on again, add some other sporting fields at the same site. But then there was also a thought that with the shape that it's currently in right now, it might make for another good concert venue, and you could have where the seating used to be, you could have seats put there again, and then a stage on the old playing surface. There was a news story earlier this year that an archaeologist had discovered the site of a slave burial ground on the Fort Negley site. So I went into the visitor center and I asked the park ranger about this, and he told me that the story in the news generally got the idea right, but some of the details were a little bit off. The archaeologist came in and found that what he believes is more likely than not to be a slave burial ground, but there's not any actual 100% proof or evidence for certain that's what's going on here. This burial site would not have actually been on the playing surface or part of the stadium itself, but in the process of building the stadium, the site where this burial site would be was covered in over 10 feet of dirt. Today's equipment can't go that deep into the ground to go through 10 feet of dirt to see what's that far below it. And this area was very close to the tracks. Also, it is believed that these slaves were ones who died in the building of Fort Negley. With that in mind, the powers that be decided that we should not be using this site for creating a new ball field or creating a new concert venue. But at the same time, the Sounds owners did not actually own the land here. It was leased from the city. So the entire Fort Negley site also owned the land that Greer Stadium was on. So the idea now is they're going to take the Fort Negley Park and it's going to encompass all of the land, including the ballpark site. So if you want to see the way that Greer Stadium looks today, you don't have a lot of time. They are actually starting to bring in construction crews and they're parking in the parking lot over here. And starting in the first couple of months of 2025, they're actually going to demolish everything that's left of the old Greer Stadium site. And it's not going to look like this anymore after just a couple of months from now. And in the Fort Negley Visitor Center, there's actually an image of how it's going to look once they finish their project. So most of the playing surface is going to be what is now called the Memorial Lawn, and up facing Chestnut Street by the tracks is going to be Freedom Plaza. And then where the old lower parking lot area used to be for the stadium is going to be some walkways, or what they call the mode pathways, and the native meadow. And so, yeah, we're not going to have this stadium site here anymore. It's going to be now part of the Civil War site. If you enjoyed this deep dive to Nashville baseball site history, then please check out my See Mid 10 Presents playlist, where I have some deep dives of other places of interest in Nashville, Middle Tennessee, and sometimes surrounding states. I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.